We're back here on Extra Rounds. TJ DeSantis, please be joined now by one of the pillars of combat sports journalism. It is Kevin Iole from Yahoo Sports. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing good, TJ. Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. A big fight going down this week in Beantown, Boston, Massachusetts. It seems like forever when the UFC would go back east to Boston. It was like during the AFC Championship game and the Patriots were playing. But now we're in the thick of summer. Have you ever been to Boston in the summertime? Like, I don't know what is it going to be warm and humid? What should I expect, Kevin?
Yeah, it's going to be rough. It's going to be humid. I would guess. Dana always wanted to go to those Patriots playoff games, so that gave him a chance to put those in the winter. He could go to a playoff game. So
right.
So now with Mac Jones at quarterback, I think Dana realizes it's not the same as having the GOAT. So let's put him in the summer when it can at least be a little bit nice. Make sure you hit Faneuil Hall though.
Okay, all right, but the Red Sox aren't even in town. That's what was disappointing for me too. They're on the road this week.
Yeah, no Red Sox, no Bruins. I mean, it's going to be a rough week there. You're going to just have to rough it in like good old Boston.
Yeah, I mean, there's a pretty damn good fight card coming up, and it's headlined by a bantamweight championship bout as the Funk Master Aljamain Sterling defends against Sean O'Malley. Quick turnaround for Aljo, a little bit quicker than I think he wanted it to be from his last fight back in May. And then, on the opposite side, you have Sean O'Malley, who hasn't fought since October. I'm curious, does this sort of, bit of a layoff for O'Malley in your mind benefit him, considering that Aljo had to turn around quicker than maybe he wanted? Like, who's like better off for having the timeline of this fight taking place when it is?
I think if Aljo had come out of that fight with Cejudo, where he was really, kind of trying to recover from some serious injuries, that then maybe it would favor O'Malley. But I talked to Aljo at length the other day, and I didn't get the sense from him that that he had trouble. He didn't have a lot of time outside of camp to relax and enjoy before he had to get back in. But I think his body came out of that fight surprisingly. You normally would think with a guy like Henry Cejudo with that grappling heavy style and everything that he has, that you would feel it for a few days afterwards. But I don't think he did. From what he said to me. So I don't think it's really that big of an advantage. Having time off is always good in MMA because there's always, things. But when you complete a 2-month or 10-week camp, whatever these guys do, you're always going to feel something. So I don't see there being one advantage one way or the other, TJ.
What about stylistically? Because, you look at O'Malley and, his base is obviously striking. He's a guy who likes to attack from range. He's dynamic with his striking abilities, a guy who's not afraid to spin and go for flashy moves, where Aljo, no stranger to mixing up on the feet, but he's sort of a cut from that grappling cloth, a grinder, if you will. Stylistically, do you feel like this fight has as an edge one way or the other?
Well, you have to say that it favors Aljo, right? I mean, what do we say about all these good young prospects coming up? You can't say that they're really good until they fight that big burly wrestler. Well, who in this division is a bigger, burlier wrestler than Aljamain Sterling? I mean, this likely is going to be his last fight at 135. Don't say that for sure, because if he loses, then I think he's going to probably want a rematch. But But if he wins it, I don't think we'll see him fight at 135 anymore. And so, I think, from a stylistic standpoint, just going in on paper, you got to say, hey, you got the guy that's got the track record. He has a case as the greatest bantamweight champion in UFC history, and he's got that big wrestling game. Look, he out-wrestled Henry Cejudo in that last fight. Yep. That is, really a remarkable accomplishment. So I think anytime you do that, that's the kind of guy you look towards. So I think Sterling is deservedly the favorite.
Yeah, I don't know, though, about being the fan favorite. And that is one thing about Aljo. It's eluded him for whatever reason. I thought he was going to be cheered, more than he was against Cejudo, being that fight was in Newark, not very far from Long Island. Triple C, he's the cringiest player in the game. But for whatever reason, the fans have not gravitated towards the UFC's bantamweight king. And I mean, I'm curious, what are your thoughts? Why isn't Aljamain Sterling more, likable and received well with the fan base, do you think?
Yeah, that shocks me because he's not only a good fighter, but he's also a really entertaining guy. Like, so he's in the media a lot. He engages with fans on social media a lot. He's well spoken. He's creative, so it surprises me to a great deal. Like, hey, look, Sean O'Malley, an Irishman, go and fight in Boston. There's no chance anybody's going to, other than Conor McGregor, would be the fan favorite over Sean O'Malley on this particular fight. But you're right, TJ. When you look at it, Peter Yan fight, the fans were, and I think it goes back really to the first Peter Yan fight. I think that's where the way people didn't like the way he celebrated after the disqualification. Yan was cleanly winning that fight, commits a foul. There's a disqualification, and Aljo ends up winning the belt that way. And people just kind of, I think, took it badly that he acted like he had won the fight, which he did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, it's almost like hitting a lottery ticket, right? So if the money in the UFC is in being champion, number one, and being in championship fights, number two. And he won the championship. So he knew, hey, his future is going up. He's making a lot more money. So no matter what job we were at, if they pulled us out and said, hey, you're going up and you're going to be making considerably more money, for doing the same thing next time out, we're going to celebrate. We're going to be happy. But I think that's where it stems from. And it's really unfair to Aljo, who is a good guy, an entertaining guy, a smart guy, and a good fighter.
Yeah. Looking at Sean O'Malley after the Aljo and Cejudo fight, O'Malley gets in the octagon. Somehow I ended up, after that face-off, wanting the Merab Dvalishvili Sean O'Malley fight more than Aljo and O'Malley. But Sean took exception to, I think, a lot of the shenanigans that went on there. He seemed to be fired up. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for his mindset, do you think, coming in on fight night? Because I don't want to say he was rattled, but I would assume that he's going to be fighting with some emotion come Saturday night in Boston.
And I think Sean's a guy that needs to have some emotion, but you have to control it. You can't fight angry. You have to have emotion to fuel you, but you can't fight angry where you make mistakes because you're trying to kill this guy, right? You have to still set your shots up. You have to still do the things that you would normally do in the cage. And so I think it's going to be good for Sean, but I think what he was surprised by was all the team kind of was around him and everything, as he walked in there. I thought, I think he thought he was going to walk in, go nose to nose with him there with Joe Rogan, talking it up and saying, hey, this is great. And all of a sudden he has the entire team, including Merab, hanging around him. And the jacket thing was funny. I did confirm with Sean, though, he got his jacket back, even though Merab, I guess, bought a replica. So are two of those jackets hanging out there.
I mean, you got to love that. I love the gamesmanship. I like a good pro wrestling angle and mixed martial arts from time to time, So, I mean, if Merab and O'Malley ever fight, I guess we're going to have like the jacket on a pole match or something like that.
That'll 100% will be what it is. The winner gets the jacket.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at the, style and ability of Sean O'Malley, we've seen this kid come up through the Contender Series and shine in a very big way. The one sort of knock against him, though, or concern is his leg health. He's had some issues with his legs.
Right.
Do you think that Aljo is going to try to attack that come Saturday night?
I think Aljo is going to try to put him on his back, really. I mean, I think obviously it would make sense. You got to soften him up with some kicks and everything. But I don't think you're going to see a kick-heavy style from Aljo here. I think Aljo is going to want to get his hands on him because if you get your hands on him, you're taking away O'Malley's greatest strength in addition to playing to your greatest strength, right? O'Malley needs to, fight at distance. O'Malley is extremely quick, both of hand and of feet. And so he's going to create angles for Aljo. He's going to move. But if you end up putting your hands on him, now all of a sudden you take away, hey, he's a good grappler. And we saw videos of him in grappling matches where he surprised people with how good he was. So, it's not that he can't grapple, but I mean, Sean O'Malley is who he is because of his hands.
Yeah.
Because of his ability to land strikes from basically any angle and any distance. So I think that, I don't know that Aljo is going to go a kick heavy style, but I think he'll kick his way in and then try to put him on his back. And I think if he puts him on his back, even if he doesn't get a submission early in the fight, I think that's all going to add up, right? He's going to try to wear him down and kind of take some of his mobility away just by pounding on him, for however long this fight lasts.
Result pending, I agree with you. I think that Sterling is probably bound for the featherweight division. Even if he does lose, in my mind, if it's not like a blowout loss or something where he feels he needs to find redemption against O'Malley, if he loses a close decision, I think he's going to move up simply because Merab Dvalishvili is waiting in the wings. He's pretty much the number one contender. I'm curious, though, what are your thoughts on the prospects at or with Sterling at 145? Do you think he plays a factor there as much as he has at bantamweight?
I mean, I think the size, he has such a big size advantage at 135 that he's not going to have at 145. But look, he has that wrestling game. He's an awkward, fighter. His style is a hard style to figure out, right? O'Malley has the easier style to figure out. You look at him and, guys fight guys like that all the time. And, O'Malley's just really good at it, and he's really quick and really dynamic. Sterling is not an easy guy to figure out, and it takes a while. So I think, you bring him up, and he loses a bit of his advantage, TJ, because, fighting the bigger guys are going to be able to, but he's going to be bigger himself,
right.
And he's, I think he drains himself a lot to get into these fights at 135, whereas you go to 145, and I think that's the right weight for him. He's still going to have to cut, but it's going to be a more comfortable cut for him, and I think he'll be a little bit better version of himself. Maybe that's offset a bit by the fact that he's fighting bigger guys. So, it's kind of a wash, but I think he's going to be a factor. He's a good fighter. Let's just give him that. He's not even a good fighter. He's a great fighter. So wherever he fights, I think he's going to be fine.
Yahoo Sports, Kevin Iole, kind enough to join me here on Extra Rounds from UFC Fight Pass as we get ready for UFC 292 this Saturday night inside TD Garden. In your co-main event, strawweight championship of the world is on the line as China's Zhang Weili takes on the Brazilian and Amanda Lemos. Zhang Weili has penned quite a run for herself. Now recapturing this title. Lemos, she doesn't necessarily jump off the page as one of the marketable stars, but anytime someone stands opposite of Zhang Weili, if they're game, I think a classic fight is a possibility anytime. What do you think about this fight? What does it look like? And is this going to be a fight where the winner comes out being more marketable than they were coming in?
Well, I really like the champion in this one. I like Zhang Weili to win this one, but Lemos is a fighter that, number one, I don't think she's fought the level of competition that Zhang Weili has fought. So that, that's an advantage to Weili for what she has done there. But, hey, look, Marina Rodriguez has, that great striking, and she went in there and she really outstruck her. And I think, that she's going to go out there and she's going to get everything she has, striking with Zhang Weili. Now, Zhang Weili can hit. And we found in that Joanna fight, she can also take it, right? In that first fight. I mean, that was unbelievable punishment she took, and both of them took. But we're talking about Zhang Weili here, and she still kept going. So I think this is a fight that people are going to get a kick out of, because I think there's going to be a lot of action, and you're probably going to see knockdowns on both sides. That would not shock me at all. But I think Weili has the better overall game, the more well-rounded game, and so I think she'll be able to make adjustments, and I think she's also the stronger and better athlete physically. So to me, I think this is a title defense for her, and I think we'll see her come out on top. But it should be a fun fight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Can't wait to see it in your co-main event. Also on this card, we're talking about Aljamain Sterling at the top, one of his teammates on it as well. And Chris Weidman, it is a return after that gruesome injury against Uriah Hall. To Weidman's credit, he's taken a grappling match since we've last seen him in the octagon. I don't know how much to take from that as far as the leg health. I mean, his leg was snapped badly, oddly reminiscent to the fight, that he had with Anderson Silva, where the leg injury was on the other side. What should we expect? What is fair, I guess, Kevin, to expect from Chris Weidman as he comes into this return fight Saturday night in Boston?
That's a really good question, TJ. And if you look at it, Weidman won the title in what I think it was 2012.
Yep.
And in this sport, champions usually have a shelf life, right?
Yep.
That's 11 years ago, and now here he is, is coming back after that. So I think it's hard to expect him to really get back all the way, and it's also hard, And I looked up the line before I got on here, and I saw that Brad Tavares is like almost a 3-1 favorite, which shocked me. They were both healthy, and they were both, there was no broken leg or whatever. I think Chris Weidman would be a pretty considerable favorite, maybe 2-1, 2.5-1 in the fight. But now we have it flipped almost where Brad Tavares is, and I think that makes sense from a betting standpoint. We're going to see Brad Tavares, I think, is a really good opponent for Weidman at this stage of his career to see what he has left. I thought he was trending down a little bit anyways when he got injured, and I think he had some things to prove about trying to get himself, back and on the upswing. So Tavares is a really good opponent for him, but the way Chris has been talking, and he's been so confident about what he's going, I think, he's in a good camp, and those guys know. I think he believes that he's had a really good training camp, and he's ready to perform at the highest level he's capable of now. I would not expect prime Chris Weidman, but I think you're going to see a pretty good version of Weidman in there, and an entertaining fight with a guy like Brad Tavares.
He said this in multiple interviews leading up to this fight, going back even like 6 weeks. But Weidman said he's going to go out there and throw a leg kick in the first few moments. I mean, that seems crazy to me. That might be like a mental thing more than anything else. Maybe it is 100%. But if I were to give you a betting line of 1.5, what's your over under on Chris Weidman's leg kicks? Over under 1.5 leg kicks from Weidman.
Over under at the 1.5 for the minutes of the first round, or 1.5 kicks total.
Total.
Over, definitely.
Over. Really? Yeah, you think he's gonna lean on it? Like
I think he has to, and I think for his own, if you get into the fight and it's in the back of your mind, then you're shot. You lost the fight already. But if you get out there and you throw a kick early in the fight, and I think number one, it's going to get the crowd behind him even more, because everybody knows what happened to him, and that's hard to erase that picture from your mind of not only of his legs snapping as gruesomely and as disappointingly as it did, but seeing him, in excruciating pain and being taken out of the cage. Now you see him come back and throw that kick. The crowd's going to roar when that happens. And I think that'll get the crowd behind him and have him going. So I think he has to do that just to kind of get the momentum built up, right? But I also think in the fight, he wants to win the fight. And I think he's going to need to use all the weapons he has. And I think one of the weapons he's got to use against Brad Tavares is give him that kick. So I definitely, if it's 1.5 kicks in the fight, I think that's a pretty good number for me to say over.
All right, how about this? Over under 45 seconds for the first leg kick to take place.
Ooh, that's a good number there. And I may say over that one. I think you're going to have that little feeling dancing around process for a couple seconds where where they throw basically nothing. So I'll say over that one, but I think it's going to be early, right? You kind of hit that spot where it's like right there. You should be an odds maker, because you gave a number that's really good, and I think right on the money, where it's going to be a little over, a little under that.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All I know is I kicked my coffee table one time with my shin, Kevin, and that was the worst feeling I've ever had in my life. So I can't imagine what it's like for
you
Chris
didn't even
Weidman.
break the coffee table or your shin.
Exactly, 100%, 100%. Although I do buy cheap IKEA furniture, so you don't know the status of that coffee table. I'm just saying. Kevin, are you going out to Boston?
I am not making it. I'm going to be here in Vegas for that one, so I'll be on ESPN Plus.
Man, I'm surprised you're not trying to escape that Vegas heat.
Oh my God. Well, at least fortunately today, it's not that bad. It's only 96 today. So we'll be all right.
If it's above 85 degrees, I'm dying. So that's why I live in Orange County. But Kevin, I appreciate the time. We'll have to have you back and talk more UFC in the future.
Anytime you need me, I appreciate it. Thanks, TJ. Have a good one.